Hello everyone, my name is Wendong Zhang. I am an assistant professor of economics and extension farm management specialist at Iowa State University. Today I'm going to talk about farmland markets in Iowa and across the Midwest. So first I want to talk about why do we even care about a farmland market. This figure sums it all that when you are looking at farmland market, the value of agricultural land and buildings consistently represents over 80 to 85% of all U.S. farm assets. So really significant for the financial health of the ag sector across the country. But also from a single producer perspective, this is really significant because this is the single largest investment item, major source of collaterals, and typically the biggest source of debt as well. So where do we find information about farmland? When it comes to Iowa, one of the key sources is a survey I run that is done annually called the ISU Land Value Survey. So from the most recent survey from 2017 November, we find there's a 2% increase over the average farmland market in Iowa. So which essentially, how to put that into perspective, that ends a consecutive decline over the past few years. That if you look at this figure, the three recent bars, red bars to the right, represents for the first time since the 1980 farm crisis, Iowa farmland markets have been declining 3 years in a row. So this most recent 2% jump ends that, and essentially it's mainly driven by limited land supply. So that is really important because when you are thinking about the recent bump, a lot of people would argue whether we are seeing a turn of the land market. I'm afraid probably not. It's mainly driven by limited land supply. When you are looking at Iowa land sales, only half of the percent, actually 150,000 acres got sold. That's represent 0.5% of the land, which is roughly only half of the availability of a typically same market for farmland. When you are looking at other sources, this recent 2% bump is not out of line with other sources. Federal Reserve from Chicago reported a 3% increase, and Realtor Land Institute, an association essentially consists of real estate and farm managers and appraisers, they reported roughly a 5% increase. However, I want to caution you, this recent bump are not driven by improved economic fundamentals. If you think about what drives farmland market, it tends to be income divided by interest rate. So when we are looking at income is falling down. So USDA estimates roughly there's a 6.7% decline forecasted this year. That is even below we have trade disputes with China. So that essentially we're thinking about that net farm income in the future will be stabilizing or roughly declining. When we're looking at the interest rate, it's inching up by the Federal Reserve, citing the improvements of the general economy. Go back to the formula a little bit. Land value equals income divided by interest rate. The numerator, income, is stable. Interest rate, the denominator is rising. So there are downward pressures from both ends, which should suggest that in the future we might see further moderation or stabilization of the land market. So this is exactly what is shown. From Purdue University, they have an Ag Economy Barometer that roughly this figure shows that as of January 2018, 20% of the producers are expecting a higher farmland prices, 20% expecting a lower one. The other half of the producers are expecting stabilization in the land market, which is consistent for Indiana, Iowa, and across the Midwest. So in the end, I want to highlight one of the wonderful resources we created. It's a web portal where you can find land value information for your county, your district, and other states as well. It's easy to remember. It's CARD Farmland. So CARD stands for Center for Agricultural and Rural Development at Iowa State University. It's the first ag policy center in the nation, and you can find more information about this topic through this web portal. And thank you very much. And I'm Wendong Zhang from Iowa State. I lead the land value survey. Thank you.